Hello and welcome to the Book Lounge, where today I am going to ask author Charlotte Blair all about her very new book, Career Unstuck: How to Play to Your Strengths and Find Freedom and Purpose in Your Work Again. Hello, Charlotte.
Hello, thank you very much for having me on. Very exciting.
It is wonderful. Now, before we get started, my name is Sigrid, high impact, high profit book writing and publishing specialist and Women's Network Australia ambassador, bringing to you the Business and Lifestyle Book Lounge, the place where business, books, and authors meet. An exciting place, and it is very exciting to have you here, Charlotte. So let's get right into it. You have got this fantastic new book. Is it your first book?
It is my first book. Yes, very excited that it's the first book and already thinking about book two, but yeah, it's the first one.
And that's how it goes, doesn't it? Once you've got that knowledge spilled out into one book, you want to spill more. Is that sort of how you feel as well?
Yes, absolutely. It's always hard when you're first writing the book to think about what do I want to go in this book, and I think it ended up being three potential books. So I have to kind of focus on, okay, this is the first book, and then already chomping at the bit and thinking about how can I help more people, and thinking about the content of the second book. So yeah, it's like a little addictive thing, I think.
Yeah. So what we would like to know is, who are you and why did you write the book?
Who am I? Well, that I could go on a long story about that. Who am I? I am a proud dyslexic. And there's a story in there about the book. I am a mother of two older boys now. I say older teenage boys. I'm a wife of 25 years. I'm an avid beekeeper. I'm a retired horse rider. I don't say retired, I used to say failed horse rider, but I had an accident and it meant that I retired on my horse riding. I'm a big lover of herbs and growing vegetables and herbs on my property. I'm a walker, a dog lover, a semi-cat lover, but an absolute country girl who moved over to rural Victoria from the UK about 14 years ago. And also an author, a speaker, and a Gallup accredited strengths coach.
Fantastic. So there is a huge variety of topics we could tap into and questions.
Absolutely.
Let's see if we can bring this vast background and interests of yours into why did you go down the track of writing this book? How did the steps take you there? Or what were the steps that took you there?
I think it probably started, there's two sides to this. The first one was I was stuck in my own career. My background pretty much is I didn't go to university. I left school as quickly as I could. I went and worked with horses. I'd have lots of waitressing jobs on the side. I then found myself in a corporate environment. I used to work for Canon UK. And I gradually transitioned into a sales role. And then I ended up working at Verizon, big global IT company. And I, at some point in my career, felt a bit stuck. Probably about 10, 11 years ago, I kind of felt stuck. I kind of liked what I did, but I didn't love what I did. I felt a little bit pointless, a little bit irrelevant. Some of the things that I was doing, I wasn't really making a difference. And I did the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that talked about your mission and purpose in life. My mission and purpose in life was not to be a great IT salesperson. So I, headed off down an exploratory route of how could I get unstuck. So it's partly I was stuck once, and a lot of people say, wow, that sounds quite inspiring that you've shifted your career from IT sales to now running your own business and coaching and leadership and facilitation. You should write a book. And I'm like, nah, I can't write a book. I'm highly dyslexic. That's not for me. The second side of it was probably in the more recently, probably in the last 4 or 5 years when I was coaching people. So I'm a International Coaching Federation coach. I would do a lot of executive coaching, a lot of senior coaching. And I would often ask the question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love your job? And the number was so low for so many people. And I would find myself making suggestions after the coaching of books they might want to read, courses they might want to go on, things that help me get unstuck, you know, discovering my why, discovering my strengths. So I would find myself sharing those time and time again in an email after the call, and, you know, just find myself typing the same things, and people would say, oh, you know, you should sort of put that into a workbook or put that into a book. So I found myself combining the two, you know, writing a book that shared a little bit about my own story, and then writing a book that shared resources. So it's a very practical book. It's like a little coach in your pocket, or a little, you know, workbook in your pocket. Good bit of reference. So there were two sides to writing the book.
So what I'm hearing is, from a very colorful amount of interest, lots of interest, very colorful, and colorful types of jobs and work that you've done, it's come to realizing, as I read and you know, checked out what your book is all about, it really is about this personal strengths that we have, to discovering what is it for us individually to help us move forward when we are at a place where it feels like this is not the right place. Did I get that right from your writing and your intent with your book?
You absolutely got that right. Yes. Whilst it's not all about strengths, there are lots of books out there that are only focused on strengths. The key is, yeah, what is it that really excites you and energizes you and gives you passion, and the things that you do really well. If you are playing to more of those things, then we are happier and more engaged, and, you know, feel like we've got more purpose and drive and freedom. But I guess before that, what I noticed writing the book is sometimes we've got to identify what it is that's keeping people stuck. And often it's because they're not able to use their strengths. And for some people, they don't know what their strengths are. They're really good at naming skills, but they're not very good at being able to identify what their strengths are. You ask anybody what their weaknesses are, and they can list them off really quickly. Ask people what their strengths are, and they might flounder around a little bit and say, well, I'm really good at Excel, or I'm really good at connecting. And therefore, you know, really understanding what our strengths are, and we start with talent there, kind of helps us. And then there's, you know, there's a number of things around the edges, as you would have read in the book, about, you know, having a cheer squad and mentors and testing the water and different things you could do. So it's kind of taking people from the what's keeping us stuck, what's the impact of being stuck, reimagining, and then helping us kind of get unstuck through a bit of a process.
It is a process, isn't it? Now that leads me straight away to asking you, what are your strengths? How did you discover them, and what are they?
So how I discovered them, when I was, it's probably about 14 years ago, when I was at Verizon, I had the opportunity to take the Clifton Strengths Assessment. Gallup are a big global polling company. They have done decades of research into what makes a great writer, or a great barista, or a great lawyer, or a great marketeer, and they found that there were these patterns of talent. So they developed this assessment called the Clifton Strengths Assessment. Some of your members, listeners, may well be familiar with StrengthsFinder 2.0. It got renamed Clifton Strengths. So I took that a number of years ago and went, yeah, this sounds like me. But I didn't really do much with it. It wasn't until I kind of got to that point of, I know I want to do something different, that I re-looked back at them. So the assessment enables you to uncover your 34 different areas of talent. Now, my dominant talents, that my go-to ones, are actually activator. So I love starting things. I love getting groups started as well. I'm very good at sort of igniting fires under people. Woo, which stands for winning others over. Socially courageous, love meeting new people, very energized by connecting with people I don't know and do know. I also have command, which sounds like a very bossy word, but for me it means courage. So courage to challenge the status quo, courage to lead in the absence of others, courage to speak up. arranger. So I love like that. The whole concept of, the women's network really appeals to me, because I think with my woo and my arranger, I love connecting people. I'm really good at arranging events and things, and even, the back of the car, very good at juggling things. Positivity. So I am a glass half full or glass brimming over type of girl. I love looking at the silver lining and the positives of things. I won't go all into all of them. I kind of warmly sign on Zoom, show some of the others, but communication, I love talking. Responsibility, I love, or I am known for doing what I said I was going to do. Maximize is all about taking something from good to great. Significance, I want to have an impact. Individualization, whatever I do, I'm always tailoring to the individual. So I think I live and breathe these every day. Sometimes they trip me up. Sometimes they get in my way. My activator can go rushing headlong into things, with a very positive attitude. And sometimes people have got to rein me back in. So yeah, our strengths can sometimes trip us up and get in our way if we don't moderate them enough. I could talk all day about this, but I'm going to take a breath.
I can imagine. I mean, 34 strengths is a lot to know about and to kind of deal with as to how they reflect out there in your work and in your life daily. When you discovered that, what difference did it make for you to know your strengths in relation to career in particular, seeing that you've written about career with your book?
Yeah. So whilst there are 34 different talent themes, we don't actually need to know all of them. It's not like you need to register or understand them. A lot of people just start with the top 5. And I kin it to, I've got this book here. I kin it a little bit to Jamie Oliver's, 5 ingredients book. If we get really comfortable with using 5 ingredients, like our 5 main strengths, get really, really comfortable with what's possible with those, then that's a good starting point. And then we can start to sort of get familiar with some of the others. But we absolutely don't need to know all 34 of them. Knowing what's at the bottom is actually quite useful as well, because that's not what energizes us typically. So like at the bottom for me, I'm not particularly high learner, input, intellection, all those thinking themes, which kind of goes to say probably why I didn't study at university. I left school and got out there as quickly as possible. I do like learning, but I love learning with other people and by doing, with my activator and my woo. So if I think about my career, I think I got into sales because I love communicating. The person that sort of identified, oh, you should go into sales. One of my first mentors was like, Charlotte, you could talk the hind leg off a donkey. I think that's probably a British saying. Gift of the gab, talk a lot. How can we fine tune this for you to be able to kind of get into an area of sales? Because I love meeting people and I'm not shy, and I enjoy making that initial connection and tailoring solutions to people. I found myself in a role where I was playing to my strengths, but over time, it was the lack of the freedom and the lack of the purpose. Like I didn't feel like there was any purpose to what I was doing. And I think it's that significance talent theme that I've got, the significant strengths of, I want to have an impact. I want to do something that makes a difference. And I get to do that every day now, whereas I didn't really in the previous role, selling networking solutions or security solutions. Yes, it kind of helps, but it's not really making a big difference. So there were a lot of my talents and strengths that were transferable in what I moved to around coaching and leadership and facilitation. So I think for people when they think about their careers are, sometimes what keeps us stuck is going, well, I trained to be an accountant. I can't suddenly throw that all away and train to do something else. Actually, everything that you have done before is transferable and useful. And that was a gift of yesterday. The gift of tomorrow is doing something that's meaningful for you. Now, some people don't want to work with freedom. Some people don't want to work with purpose. And if that's the case and they're happy doing what they're doing, great. But if their scale of 1 to 10 answer to how much you love your job is lower than they want it to be, and there's something that they can do, and knowing what your strengths are means that, again, you are typically happier and more engaged in doing the things that you love doing.
And that leads me to ask you the question that, identifying, for people to identify what's keeping them stuck in their career, how important is it for them to first know what their strengths and weaknesses are so they can play to the strengths? Is that a direct relationship to need to know your strengths before you can become unstuck?
It's a need to know. I think it's a very helpful to know. If I think about the thousands of people that I have worked with to help them discover their strengths, and whether it be coaching or team workshop or people that have just gone and taken the assessment, they have found it incredibly confidence giving to say, I now have a language to put to what I do well. I mean, what I think something that's popping up for me here is the statistic that the chances of you having just the same top 5 talent themes in the same order as somebody else is 1 in 33 million. So that goes to show how truly different we all think, feel, and behave. And when people get to discover theirs, it's often, well, some people it's an aha moment of, I now have a language, I feel a lot more comfortable and empowered here. Or I now realize why I feel stuck, because I'm not able to do the things that I love doing. If they are somebody who loves connecting with other people, or looking over data, or being able to look to the future, or to be able to communicate, and that's stifled and they're not able to do that in their work, then that's often what keeps them stuck. Do you have to identify that first? No, but I think there is a correlation between the two. Maybe you feel stuck. I write in the book about, excuse my language, but I do write in the book about having a shitty boss. Like there are a lot of people who have bad bosses out there, and that's what's keeping them stuck. Now, their strengths might not have anything to do with that, but it could be just, it's like being stuck in a bad relationship that you feel that you can't get out of. It can knock your confidence, demoralize you, and make you feel like you have no options. But if you are leveraging some of your strengths about, connecting with somebody else, or building a deep relationship, or going and exploring and learning something new, learn is kind of, one of those dominant talents, low for me, but dominant for a lot of other people, that it might help you get unstuck. So I think knowing your strengths is useful to help you get unstuck, but useful to build that greater self-awareness. But you can easily write a list of all the things that you love doing and all the things that you hate doing, and some of those can help you get unstuck. There's lots of simple kind of mechanisms, but I probably bias because Sigrid, being a Gallup accredited strengths coach, I'm probably biased at seeing the power of knowing your strengths can help so many people.
And move a lot. So actually that leads me to ask you, stuck, is that how people actually express it in there? Because it's not just in work, it's life as well, isn't it? Is it that they say, I feel stuck? Is that what you hear mostly?
I think so, yes. It's like this ability not to move forward. So, I did think about the title for the book, and this kind of word stuckness just kept popping up. If I think about, why I wrote it and who I wrote it for, I think stuck is the right word. And sometimes it's a mindset thing. I feel like I don't have a choice. I feel I've got to stay here to pay the mortgage. I've trained to do this. I can't go and do something else. So I think sometimes what's keeping us stuck is our own mindsets, our own limiting beliefs, the perhaps imposter syndrome that resides within some people. But I think stuckness does capture it. It's maybe the fear of what else is out there, and what if I move to something and it's not quite right. So yeah, I think fear can keep us stuck.
Certainly, it certainly can. Now you mentioned going out there and being with purpose and wanting to make a difference. It leads me to ask the question, career, being stuck in a career, or just being stuck to get unstuck, finding freedom and purpose in your work. For you, to some extent, that was also that move from corporate 9 to 5 work into entrepreneurship, if I understood that correctly. Is that something that you see a lot happening once somebody experiences their own strengths and knows, yes, I could actually do this, leave this behind and go to something new? Is that something you do experience a lot, or is it a lot of times you're working with people who are in a career, they stay in that career, but they need that invigorating move forward with your support?
Yeah, well, there's two things I think you've picked up here. And when I talk about the second book, I think the book I really wanted to write was actually about people starting their own business. And then that will be the second book, I think, because I found it so amazing to move from that corporate and having that freedom and purpose, to move from corporate. And it really wasn't that hard. I think a lot of people think starting their own business and leaving corporate life is really hard. And for me, it wasn't that hard. Maybe for some people it is, but for me, it wasn't that hard. So I wanted to inspire and empower other people to be able to do that, that you could earn just as much money, if not more money, and, you know, be your own boss, not have the bad boss, or the, you know, the ties, or the pointless work. I say pointless work because for me, sometimes filling out a load of spreadsheets felt very pointless. So yes, I would love more people to do that, but that's not the only coaching that I do. It's just because I took that path and I find it inspiring talking. I work a lot with other coaches, or people who are at that cusp of, I think I want to go off on my own, but I don't know how to go about doing it. But, you know, in the book, I also wanted to write it for people who perhaps are in a are in a corporate 9 to 5 as an individual contributor, but don't love what they do. So they might feel a little bit stuck there. Perhaps there's some job crafting that can go on that means that they tweak their role very slightly and they get to do more of what they love, that gives them, you know, that purpose. Now, purpose doesn't need to be some big grandioso, you know, I'm helping save lives. It can just be, I am doing something that feels like it's meaningful and I'm making a difference, whether that be contributing to a great client experience or whether it be something bigger. That's not for me to define what purpose looks like. But most people, when they say they want purpose, is they want to feel like what they're doing is making some sort of difference. You know, even I think about people stacking shelves in a supermarket. That could be a sense of purpose, that they are helping people buy their groceries in an easy way. That's still a purpose behind that. The freedom piece, I think, came about probably a little bit more during COVID, if I'm honest, where people got a taste of freedom, got a taste of what working from home might look like, spending more time with their family. So I think the freedom bit came out as a result of kind of COVID, and the more people I spoke to, that's something that they wanted more of. But, you know, I think if you ask most people, they do want some sort of freedom over their life and their work.
Yes, they want to determine where they can work, how they can work, and to some extent the times to work as well, isn't it? That's what we experienced in those days, being being at home and being able to do everything there, especially with the technology that we have these days, which is fantastic. I'm curious to know, do you experience people coming to you, or people you're working with, clients you're working with, around helping them getting unstuck in their career? Are there particular types of people that are more stuck or more often coming to you because they're stuck? Particular industries, perhaps? Is it one or the other?
I think I notice people within corporate naturally feel, I say naturally, maybe that's not the right word to put in there. I think because I mainly work with corporates, Sigrid, I notice that somebody feels stuck in the humdrum of 9 to 5 in the role. But I think that's, you know, when I'm working with a big corporate and I'm engaged to coach individuals or leaders, and I do ask that question of most people, especially when we're contracting at the early phase, like verbally contracting and finding out what they really want to get from the coaching session. I don't come across that many entrepreneurs or coaches or people that run their own business that feel stuck, in all honesty. Sometimes there's a mindset stuckness about, well, I need to run a workshop and I need help here, and they might be stuck in their own mindset. But I think certainly being career stuck, I think, yes, it's more that corporate. Is there an industry? It's a good question. I haven't really thought about industry. I'm not sure that there is actually an industry. If I think about a coaching engagement I did where I coached 120 different people at the same telecommunication organization, I noticed a lot of people feeling stuck there. Now, some people have maybe been there 20 years. Some people just sort of didn't love what they did. Maybe it was just a transition time. That was a little bit over COVID as well. So, maybe there was just something in there. But I'm not sure I could answer that question, because I think when I work with an organization, I'm often working in blocks. So it might be, 50 people here or 50 people there. And the industry can be different. It can be finance, telco, government. And I notice a similar pattern with all of them. I don't think there's any one particular industry.
So it's within the people, really, not so much the industry, but within the people and the organization, how they have their people deal with their positions and their careers within that organization more. Is that correct?
I think, yes, it is. And I guess even I think about maybe the roles that people feel most stuck in, I think there is some sort of trap around status sometimes. So somebody might have got in to be a manager and they feel like they've got a, some status or level. I work really hard to get to this level. And I can't throw that all away now. Like, I can't go back and change. And I think there's something in there about status that's kind of keeping people a little bit stuck. And the money, there's something in here about money mindsets and the money. Well, I'm now earning X. I've got a mortgage to pay. I've got school fees to pay. I can't just go and change that.
Yeah.
But, sometimes there's a whole lot of exploratory that goes in there. I write in the book about this is a book group section, but you'll notice in the book there's, at the end of each chapter, other reading. Like, I'm not an expert on money and finance, but I love Jackie Clark's book, Stop Worrying About Money. Wow. Because she talks about, looking at your front, opening the front door cost. What does it cost opening up your front door? And other little things that can be done there to sort of save money. That means to say you don't have to stay in the job earning that money. So there's a whole kind of piece in there, but I think there's something to do with status and the salary that status has led to that keeps people sometimes trapped. If it's not stuck, maybe it's trapped.
And that reminds me of people I've worked with, particularly now. This is where we're coming back to industry, which may not apply in your work, but people in sales, for example, may have some really high-end income positions within an organization in the sales area. And for them, in my experience, it is really difficult to move somewhere else, even though they feel stuck in their career where they are. So what you've touched on is really relevant and important. The money is a big thing. Is the money a big thing from the perspective of feeling a lack of, if they move into something that brings them joy, that is happy? Or is that something real? And by that I mean, we are in uncertain times. A lot of jobs are being cut, even in the higher income area. Which one do you think it is more, or is one more than the other?
I'm not sure if one is more than the other. Like, yes, we are in interesting economic times, but we've been in those times before. And I don't know, is there such thing as a stable job anymore? If I think about some of the big corporates that I work with, there's always restructures and always redundancies going on. But should that be the reason not to follow your passion or your heart, or stay stuck in something that doesn't give you joy? I talk a lot in the book about the impact of that, staying stuck that impact, what's it having on you, your health, your well-being, your family, you know, your loved ones. So yeah, there's something in there perhaps about the economic. I'm not turning around and expecting everybody to suddenly quit their job and, you know, go off and do something. But I think reviewing what you earn and how much you really, really need to earn, like that trade-off, it does then need to be a trade-off to being happy and earning the money. I mean, you're absolutely right. My career was in sales pretty much, you know, since I finished waitressing and working with horses. I've always been in sales. And yes, comes with it a higher salary, a higher risk because you've got a target to hit, but a higher salary. Now, maybe, you know, I'm fortunate that I paid off my mortgage and it enabled us to move to Australia, and therefore starting a business, I could afford to do that. But if I still had a big mortgage to pay, maybe the decision, you know, might be different. But that doesn't stop us having the conversation with somebody about what tweaks could we make to that job that would give us a bit more freedom and purpose? Or is there something that I could start on the side to transition into? But I think also there's a lot of fear out there that people think they're not going to earn as much money doing something different. Like I earn more money now than I did, you know, working in sales and telco. That didn't come immediately, but over a period of time of building my business up to be a successful business, you know, now I earn more money. It's not the only reason I do what I do, but it's a buy part. I think sometimes people think they're not going to earn as much money, but they could. They could earn as much or more, but maybe they also don't need to earn as much if they had a few tweaks around the edges.
So that kind of leads me to think into the direction of where you're talking about evaluating your mindset and beliefs. That's a strong part behind that too, wouldn't it be?
Oh, 100%, yes. And, you know, that mindset might be limiting belief of, you know, like I had that belief of, oh, I can't write a book because I'm highly dyslexic. You know, oh my gosh, yeah, where do I even start being a dyslexic writing a book? And, you know, kind of sometimes a spell check doesn't even know what I'm trying to say. So I had that limiting belief. Yet an enabling belief would be, yes, I can write a book if I have a support mechanism behind me and I understand how to write the book. And that's what you're paying editors for as much as anything. Some people, you know, have a limiting belief of, I can't do something else, or a fear belief of, you know, what if it doesn't work? Well, what if it does work? So yes, I think our mindset keeps us trapped a lot of the time. I think as I was writing the book, I don't think I suffer that much from imposter syndrome. I know a lot of people do. It's a word that's bandied around a lot. I think even when I was sort of sharing with my book writing coach, you know, I want to write this book and yeah, just jump in and start a new business. She said, well, Charlotte, not everybody feels like you do. And I think you need to go and do some more research of what it is that's keeping other people stuck. But I think often it was our mindset. It's us that keeps us stuck. Not being able to imagine what else there is and how you get free. So yeah, I kind of talk a lot about money mindsets, the beliefs that we have. Maybe it's our past that have created that belief system. And if we evaluate it and look at what's possible, then I'm not saying it can shift with a flick of a switch, but you know, we can work on it and reevaluate it and have a cheer squad beside us and mentors behind us and start to move that dial.
So that is one of the points that you are making, isn't it? To recruiting a cheer squad to help you get there. So tell me a bit more about what that would look like for somebody you're working with. How do you encourage them to do that, and what would that look like?
Yeah, well, I guess if it's, I think I want to change my job to X, it's who do you know that works in X? So I think I want to move into marketing. Well, who do you know in marketing that you could go and ask to have a cup of coffee and find out a little bit more about what that job could involve? Even if you don't know of anybody, who do you know that might know somebody? I always say to people, you know, kind of leverage my network. If I've got people in my network that would be useful to you, please just ask. It might be a case of actually seeking out formal mentors. Now, mentors can be formal, informal, doesn't ever have to just be one. It's the people that have either been there and done that and can kind of give you their words of wisdom. Or it could be kind of informal and having a number of them. I think about, I shared at the beginning, I'm a beekeeper. When we first started keeping bees, yes, my husband had done a course, and yes, I could listen to podcasts and read books, but until I actually opened up the hive and knew what I was looking for, I was sort of floundering around a little bit. So I paid a mentor, and I believe that sometimes we do have to kind of pay. So, I would pay this guy to come along and help us open up the hive and tell us what we should be looking for, and how did this hive look different to this hive. But he ultimately helped impart knowledge to us, but also give us the confidence. So, the cheer squad can be the people that have got your back, that are your supporters, whether they be women in your network, your partner, your spouse, your friends. Sometimes if people don't know how you're feeling, that you're stuck, they can't help you. I think there's also something in here that sometimes we feel afraid to ask somebody. They're too busy. I don't want to bother them. But if I came to you, Sigrid, and said, oh, would you be able to help me in this area? I'm sure you would say, yes, I would love to, because as human beings, we want to be able to help another human being. It's in our nature, it's in our DNA, unless, of course, we're like super, super busy. But I think we sometimes fear bothering somebody when most people would be delighted to kind of help out. But there is that fine balance of, we can't always expect somebody to mentor us if that's what it is, in an altruistic manner. They're not doing it just out of the goodness of their heart. That's why I did put something in there about sometimes be prepared to pay. I'm sure if you're doing, book coaching, you don't go away and giving it all away for free. There's a lot of knowledge, skill, and experience that you've gained on that, and therefore, I'm sure it comes with a monetary tag. So sometimes we have to be, expected to pay. I know when I'm coaching and mentoring other coaches, there's a lot that I give away for free. But you've started an engagement with me. There has to be some sort of kind of return. Otherwise, I'd never make any money if I spent all day mentoring.
That's exactly right. And I think generally speaking in life, we do pay for gaining new knowledge, information, and educating and upskilling ourselves anyway. So I think, that's a very valid point and a very logic point to me, to pay for getting that support, getting that help to move you to the next level, or to the next step, whatever it is you're going to. So that's really interesting. So when we look at overall, this fantastic book of yours, Career Unstuck, who specifically would want to make this part of their tool or part of their education to move to that next level? Who do you think benefits hugely from this specifically?
I think somebody who feels stuck where they are, doesn't love what they're doing at the moment, and doesn't know how to get unstuck. I think that's kind of the first one. Who it's not for is somebody who's not willing to take action, because it does involve some sort of action. Now, whether that action be reaching out to, a member of your tribe or your network, or it doesn't have to be something big, but it's not for somebody who's not willing to take some sort of action. And none of the actions in there are hard or complex. But really, it's designed for anybody who doesn't love what they're doing, not sure how to get unstuck, perhaps doesn't understand. Well, understand's not the right word. Would like a process to be able to sort of follow, would like some ideas, would like the confidence to build, would like some tips and techniques and tactics that they can use. There's a lot of coaching questions at the end of each chapter. I've got questions to kind of ask yourself to be able to reflect. So even if people are like, yeah, I just want to kind of read this, there's activities that they can conduct, like, sorting out their values, discovering their strengths, working out what their non-negotiables are, thinking about their three-legged stool of the things that are really important to them in work. So you know, for some people, just having some tips and techniques. That's why I'm hearing a lot from people are saying it's so practical. I love it because you give me practical things that I can do. And whilst it might not necessarily result in a new job in 2 weeks' time, it might give you the courage to go and have a conversation with somebody about why it is that you feel stuck or don't love what you're doing. Maybe it'll give you the confidence to have a conversation with your manager about job crafting. Maybe it will help you identify that purpose to go, I now see what it is that's missing. Maybe by understanding the non-negotiables in your work, you go, that's a simple little change that can happen here, and I can now get unstuck. There's lots of stories in there of people who were stuck themselves, and how they went about getting unstuck from a multitude of different, you know, industries and disciplines. But my main aim is that it inspires somebody to take action, to move away from feeling like, you know, their job is pointless or not energizing, or, you know, they're wrapped up in the fetal position, to actually believing that, knowing that there is some sort of hope around the corner of something better than what they've got today.
So it's a practical work for people to take action when they read it. It could be like the first step into experiencing and discovering your directions, and perhaps they can contact you for more, but because they have read the book. Sometimes people only read part of a book and they're already inspired to contact the author, isn't it? I think that's a fantastic thing as well, because it shows you how exciting and how well directed it is to a reader to want more of it, you know, to want more from you. So if we were to say in just a few words, did you have a particular reader in mind when you wrote it? And why did you have that reader in mind? Or is it really broad for particularly people in corporate, perhaps? Did you have a reader in mind, and why?
I did have a reader in mind. I probably actually had an amalgamation of 3 people in mind, but I talk at the beginning of the book about Louisa approaching her 40th birthday and feeling like it's a big milestone. And, you know, she's halfway through her life. She's got a couple of young daughters and a husband and a not great boss, and, you know, found that some of her work was, you know, a little bit pointless as well. So I think the reader in mind was probably a female in her late 30s, early 40s, but that doesn't mean to say that other people are, you know, male or other genders or around, you know, different ages is not applicable. But I think I noticed it being more some of those kind of women that were at that point of their life of there's got to be more than this. That it was particularly kind of aimed at. If I think in particular one lady that I was coaching, she's like, oh, I would really just love to do something else with my career. And I think she was the one that probably inspired me. I had a coaching call with her and she got incredibly teary and said, oh, I feel like I've got options now, Charlotte. And I kind of wrote to her recently, or she wrote to me actually and said, oh, I noticed that you've done your book. And I said, yeah, you were a huge inspiration about that reader of, yeah, you can do this. You've got it all within you. You just need to take a little step forward. And she said, you know, I'm so glad that, you know, I did speak to you, and I can see how the book can be so useful to so many people, because it was just about thinking about what's keeping me stuck and taking some little steps of action. It's amazing how it does get unstuck. And you're so right about the journey. Like I talk in the book about, I want it to be a journey. I'm there on the journey with you, but whether you start on chapter 1 and you skip chapter 2 and you go to chapter 4, you know, and you come back to chapter 3 later, it's not a linear book. It's pick it up, put it down, refer back to it. Even if you're stuck in a relationship or you're stuck in something else, you know, some of the things in there might be able to help. But yeah, it's like a
I love that.
Pocket coach.
Sorry, I'm going to jump over the top there. I absolutely love that. That would have been my next question. Do we need to read it from front to back, or you can just go whatever attracts you at the time? It's a bit like an intuitive piece, isn't it? Sometimes we look at something, we know we want to go here or there. So that is what you're saying. You can just jump in anywhere you like or you feel inclined to.
Yeah, it's like choose your own adventure journey. I recommend starting at the beginning, especially if it's the bit about, what it is that's keeping you stuck and, what's the impact of that. But absolutely, if you look at this and you go, well, I'm not interested in identifying my strengths, don't read that section. If you already feel that you've got an amazing cheer squad and mentors behind you, you don't need to read that, or you can come back to that later on. But absolutely, you can. It's designed to pick up, put down, go think about one of the reflective questions, go do one of the additional readings, maybe go do an activity. But yeah, no, it's definitely not a cover to cover linear timeline. Pick it up and put it down and share it with other people.
And I think that's a very valuable point, especially today where we are in these fast-paced, short attention span times, aren't we? That we might jump into it here and then go back to the beginning, or jump in further on. So that's really great to know that that's a good way to go through this. So I invite you to give our listeners, and particularly, I mean, from what you've just shared about who is it written for, Women's Network Australia is full of women, and there probably are loads of ladies who would like to explore what you have written about here. I invite you to give us a bit of a summary on why should I read this book now?
Why should I read this book now? Well, no time like the present. What is the impact of staying in something that you maybe don't love or is kind of draining a little bit of the life out of you? And what's the impact that that is having on you, your health, and other people around you? So, take action, pick up the book. Anybody can go on to the website, careerunstuck.com.au, download one of the sample chapters on there. There's even links to go and discover your strengths. So even if it's, actually, I don't feel stuck, but I'd love to discover my strengths, go have a look at the section on the website that says, this is how you go about discovering your strengths. But if you love your job right now and you're really happy doing what you're doing, this is not for you. But if there is something in there that you feel that there is more to the work that you are paid to do, then this might just give you little tips of what can help you feel a little bit higher on that scale of 1 to 10. Whatever number you gave yourself, if you'd like that number to be a little bit higher, this will help get that number a bit higher.
Excellent. So it is for those of you, of us, who have this shadow of a doubt there, feeling somewhat stuck. Read the book by Charlotte Blair, out new, Career Unstuck, How to Play to Your Strengths to Find Freedom and Purpose in Your Work. Again, Charlotte, I thank you so much for your time with Women's Network, the Business and Lifestyle Book Lounge, the place where business books and authors meet. Thank you for your time with us and sharing the details, and we'll see you again. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you very much.